Damn it. Ooh. Ew. 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 Icky. Gross. Ugh. I hate plumbing. Ew. Ugh. Oh God. Ugh. Ugh. Oh. 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 It's in my raccoon wounds. Oh. Oh. I've got all the plumbing turned loose from the sink and the faucet and everything, the drain, the hot water, the cold water, and the countertop is loose. But this old composite sink is extremely heavy, and I want to try and do this with as little mess as possible, being as I'm here by myself. And it's got a bead of silicone all the way around the sink to keep it sealed in. Well, now I have to try and work a putty knife or a razor blade up underneath the lip of the sink so that I can break that seal and pull the sink out, so that I don't have to sit here and fight the countertop and the sink at the same time. So let's do it. Woo. All right, now what do I do? Come on. Oh, yeah. Come on. No. Okay. All right, so now we have the old countertop in the sink removed, and our prefab cabinets are exposed. And when I put these in, really, I thought that adding some liquid nails to the tops of the cabinets would have been a good idea. Thank God it wasn't, because if the liquid nails would have really bit into it, it would have made a mess. I really didn't think that all the way through, so luckily I can just take my putty knife and get these beads of liquid nails off the top of the cabinets. And the next step is going to be cutting a piece of 3/4 CD plywood for the top of this, and that's going to be my new countertop. And then cut the hole for the sink, and then I have some Formica, and I'm going to take that Formica and use some contact cement and glue it on top of there, cut out the hole for the sink, and then at the very end, whenever I put this, the new countertop in the sink in, I'm gonna edge band all the way around the edges of the countertop with oak edge banding, and I don't know if I'm gonna paint it or stain it. I haven't gotten that far yet, but this is gonna be kind of a custom look from what Home Depot and Lowe's call it, and that's where you have the Formica countertop come to the edge of the cabinet, and then for the, you don't have a bull nose or a round over of Formica, you just take and you nail your edge banding will be essentially a piece of hardwood that has whatever router design that you want to be on the edge banding. And then after all of this is done, I already have the piece behind me done in the corner. Just have to do the edge banding on it as well. But then when this is done, I'm going to take and go over this sheetrock and backsplash this with some Subway tile. So that'll be in a future video, but for now I have my hands full with this countertop, because in an old house, old houses typically aren't perfectly square, so you really have to be on your A game when you're cutting this stuff. And with plywood being as expensive as it is right now, hell, everything's super expensive. You really got to be paying attention, and that's why I'm going to employ the help of my dad, because he can do this stuff in his sleep. And we're going to knock this out and move on to the next step. So, next, cutting some plywood. All right, so I was doing the time-lapse thing, and then we got pretty busy with this, and I didn't have a whole lot of time with my dad. He had some other stuff he had to do, so I couldn't really move the camera around to get any more shots during this, but we secured this 3/4 plywood to the countertops. We've got some strips around the perimeter to screw the countertop down to, after we took some really good measurements and made sure that everything was as good as it possibly could be to the edge of the cabinets all the way around. And from there, we carefully cut our Formica on the table saw, and a lot of people wouldn't have liked to see that because it was a pretty dangerous procedure, but that's the only way I had to cut this big sheet of Formica. So we cut the sheet of Formica so that we could have a lot extra on the three sides, the ends and the face side, and we put, where we ripped it on the table saw, we put our cut edge of the Formica up against the wall, and we only had one little spot that kind of got away from us handling that big sheet of Formica. So we had plenty to go all the way around the outside perimeter of the cabinets, and then took the palm router with a flush trim bit and went all the way around and referenced off the face of the cabinets to cut the Formica. From there, we cut the hole after we glued it. So we put our contact cement on the Formica and on the plywood, and then let it flash off, and then we applied the Formica, got it good and pressed down, let it make a good bond. And I cut this hole out for the sink with a jigsaw or a saber saw, whatever you want to cut it, using the template. and we just let it float across the hole where the sink is going to be. And after that, I took a Forstner bit and made a pilot hole in this empty space where the Formica was covering the hole, and just went around with my palm router again and a flush trim bit and just routed out this extra waste. And that's how I achieved this hole. And lo and behold, fits in there just nice and neat. Has a good snug fit all the way around. And from here, what I need to do is go in and anchor the sink to the actual countertop itself. So the way this sink anchors to the countertop is it has these tracks on all four sides, all four edges of the sink. And they have these screws, and it's kind of like a T-track, and this rides inside this T-track slot, and you thread this onto the screw. You thread this, you put this in the T-track, and you screw this, and as you screw this with a flathead screwdriver, it pulls against up into the bottom of the plywood that is your countertop, and that's what secures your sink to the countertop. So I'm gonna have to get my big behind down there underneath the sink and start securing this, which I really don't like being under the sink in the cabinet because it's very uncomfortable for a big fellow like myself. So let's go ahead and get this sink secured and get on with it. I almost forgot, I need to put this strip of plumber's putty around the perimeter of this to keep water from coming back in here and getting up to the edge of my plywood and rotting that out. So I'm just gonna go right here and just start kind of pushing it down and go all the way around the hole in the countertop that's for the sink. Now this stuff isn't exactly tape, so it will bite down on the countertop if you push it down, but if you don't, you can just pick it right back up and reposition it, and it will not hurt a thing. So once we get it all the way around the perimeter, then we just peel this backard, this protective tape off carefully, and then we'll set our sink on top of this, and that'll keep water from coming back into the edges around it. Now I'm going to install these nice looking stainless drains here. Pretty expensive, but they look really nice. They turn and lock in place to seal so that nothing can get out, which is really nice. See how it's got a really coarse thread right there that screws into the bottom of the drain. And there you go. So if you're wondering, which I know a lot of people already know this, but I'm not a plumber. I'm just a DIY maniac, and I usually do things that are well outside my capabilities. Plumbing is absolutely one of them. But if you look here, you got this right here goes to your drain, yada yada yada. But right here, you may wonder, well, if it's already got a gasket here, it's got this paper thing, that actually needs to stay on there. That's a fiber gasket, and that keeps it, I guess, from the lock washer here from tearing up or turning the rubber seal. And then on the side that's the sink side, that's why you put the plumber's putty in there, so whenever you pull down, it squishes that plumber's putty out. And if you put too much, you just take a razor blade or something and clean up around the edges. Just keep in mind that if you don't get a good solid flat bead all the way outside, and you squeeze it down and you have a gap, it looks like there's a gap from the outside, that's only because you didn't go all the way to the edge. I have one spot like that. It's not a big deal. Once I tighten this down, it'll probably push it out some more. But just know that whenever you put your plumber's putty around, you don't have to put a big old thick bead of it. Just make sure that it's nice and flat, just like this gasket, all the way around that rim on the sink, on the top side of the sink where this sits down on top of. Just keep that in mind whenever you're doing this, and always don't get too carried away when you're doing plumbing. Turn your valves for your water on slowly and check for leaks periodically for a while to make sure nothing develops, because you go to bed at night and you wake up the next morning, the whole kitchen's flooded. Don't ask me how I know how or why. So just some stuff to keep in mind. Okay, here's the somewhat finished product. Got the sink installed, drain plugs in, water works, no leaks. All this stuff back here is going to be covered with Subway tile backsplash, so don't worry about that. That's pretty ugly. And receptacles are going to get replaced at both sides, and edge banding around the perimeter of the countertop all the way around. So in closing, I have to say my hat is off to every YouTuber that can do a project and film it at the same time. I want to be able to make videos of what I'm doing, but remembering to turn the camera on, trying to concentrate on what I'm doing with the project, running around back and forth to the shop. I mean, it's impressive. My hat is off to you YouTubers out there that can do complicated projects and tasks that require a lot of thinking and still keep in mind that you want to record it. I've got a long ways to go in learning the craft of recording and videography and just documenting what I'm doing on film. It's a really fun process, but at the same time, it's really difficult for me to wrap my head around how to do all of this and record at the same time and move the camera for different shots and stuff like that. And I tell you, this is not my favorite stuff to do right here. I absolutely hate plumbing, and I'm, just about at my wit's end with remodeling this house. I've been here for a long time and just have to take small chunks and do small projects at a time. And it's exhausting. Luckily, my dad was able to come over, and my mom and my wife helped me out a lot with working on the house and stuff, but it does take a lot out of me, and videoing the process actually is kind of cathartic, and it kind of makes me a little more excited to be able to work on things around the house. So that's a plus, but at the same time, it is extremely difficult to record what you're doing and make it into some quality content that somebody would actually want to watch. But that's it for this video. I hope that if anything you got out of it, that maybe DIYing everything around your house is not the best idea. if I had the money, I would definitely pay somebody to come and do this. But I don't have the money, so I have to do it myself. So there's that. But if y'all have any questions or comments or anything like that, leave them down in the comment section. I'll help you out any way I can. If you're curious about the methods that I used here, I'll be more than happy to explain it. Although this is some really backwoods shade tree carpentry work and cabinet work. So this is just what I got to do to get by. And I hope that if you do have to do something like this in your house, that you have a lot better luck and an easier time than I did. I genuinely mean that. But anyway, y'all stay safe out there and y'all come back now.